entire section, elevate just slightly out of its natural fall. So see, we're just lifting it slightly out of this natural fall. I'm just gonna peel back so you can see my guide and my finger there. And we're just gonna cut on that diagonal. Now we're gonna point cut. We wanna get a good amount of texture going, but also so it's not as harsh or blunt. Okay, so we can see we're on the opposite corner of the eye there. Point cut. And at this point in the salon, I always tell my guests, okay, don't judge it yet. We're just getting that length in and a little bit of layering to start. We still wanna add a little texture, but what we're looking for, it's already doing it really, really beautifully right here, is just a little bit of a swoop. So it's going short to long, and then notice that we have a little bit of layering just around the edge. So it's not completely blunt, but it's not extremely layered. We want to keep a little bit of weight on it. So let's move to the opposite side now. I'm going to take this entire section, and we want to put our body on the opposite side. So I'm just going to simply move the mannequin so y'all can see when we bring or over direct that section. Remember, our point of reference to over direct to is that corner of the eye right there. So we want to pick up right in center front that guide that we cut first. So right there, place it in our comb, over direct to the opposite corner of the eye. There is our guide right there. And remember, just slightly elevate it out of its natural fall. And we're gonna go ahead and point cut. So it doesn't need to be a perfect straight line. We want a little bit of texture in there, but also a little bit of weight. And what gives us the weight is that lower elevation. If you wanted it a little bit lighter, more layered, you would elevate higher. So we're going to release and texturize. So when we check for balance, we want to just make sure all the hair is coming forward. And then just take your comb. If you need to do a little bit of a balancing act there, no worries. We're just going to take our comb and start detailing where we might need to clean up those areas. Just point cutting into them. It's all right to have just a little bit of extra length. And then we want to texturize. So we want to grab a different shear that's going to take a little bit of weight out, but not too much. So we're going to grab our InvisiBlends. The InvisiBlends are one of my all-time favorite shears. I love them because they really cut like a razor, I feel like. They give this really nice texture. There's only about 23 teeth on it, and it's really unique. What cuts on these shears is actually the teeth and not this blunt blade right there. So we're gonna use these to get a little bit of weight out, and all we're gonna do is I'm just gonna take that entire triangle and just still over direct, but I'm gonna come inside, and actually I'm gonna flip to where that blunt shear is on the bottom and the teeth are on the top. And I'm just peeling away on the very ends and doing just a hair or two in the mids right there. So look at how such little hair comes out at a time. This is really a great shear, especially for those clients that are a little bit fearful of shears like this. They don't have to be scary. It's really all in how you use them. And the purpose of using them is to just release a little bit of weight. So we're gonna do a little bit at a time. I'm gonna take my next section, same thing, over direct, moving my body so that I'm comfortable while doing this as well. Blunt blade on the bottom, and we're just gonna peel away a little bit of hair. Notice how the curtain fringe, you have your window or the face, and then the curtains can be pulled back off your face more, but truly they hang around the face. They're heavier, they're longer, but they can also be whipped off the face. So now that we have that little triangle section back, we're gonna separate this into a smaller triangle right in the center. So continuing based off of that middle part, we're just gonna take a little bit of a smaller triangle right inside. And we'll clip this other side out of the way. So it's truly what's gonna hang in front of the face. So we'll take that center front piece And I know that there's gonna be a little bounce. Here's a hot tip. Ask your guests how they style their bangs. If they already have them, they'll know. And if not, you should all discover it together. Are they using a round brush? Are they using a flat iron? What is their method of it? Because if we cut it and we say our final goal is to the eyebrow, right about there, but they're taking a round brush and high up to it, that's gonna pop up quite a bit shorter. So always make sure you ask your guests. Now let's go back here, and I'm just gonna let it sit in its natural fall right there. And we're gonna stay just a hair below the eyebrow to start right there. All right, so we just sprayed down this hair just a bit for control. We're gonna take our comb, and this is another look where we wanna keep as much weight as possible, especially if our guest has finer hair. Now, if they have thicker hair, we would go ahead and layer this a little bit different, but let's keep some weight on these babies. So we're gonna come from underneath with that comb. I'm keeping my finger position horizontal, and I'm not gonna lift it this time. So 0 elevation, except for 1 finger's width, meaning I'm holding the hair with my finger, and that is resting against the head. So technically, that is 1 finger's width of graduation or elevation behind it. So we'll have a little bit of graduation in there. We're gonna take this hair, hold it horizontally, and just simply shift it over. And now we're just gonna cut really small, shallow point cuts. I'm gonna readjust so I don't cut my finger. And just that little shift is gonna give us just a little bit of an angle in that fringe. Okay, so we'll start there, do the opposite side, and then we'll spray everything down just a bit for control. Okay, so same exact thing. We'll take a little piece of our guide, which came from the center front. We're gonna hold it in our fingers and just shift it to the side. Not elevating, just using our finger as that little graduation piece. And do very shallow point cuts. So we wanna keep that weight on there. And if we texturize, I like to choose how much texture after I see how this is sitting. So let's go ahead and spray this down. So now while styling this one, we're gonna use a comb to style these. Okay, so bottleneck bang is complete. This is what I want y'all to notice. See how we have that leftover curtain fringe that really sits around that jawline? That was the outside of our curtain fringe previously. And then now we took that little triangle and we can just start to split this open. Now you can leave it longer if you want to see more of a push to the side there, or if someone wants a little duality in their fringe, take it this short, and then they could also wear it really in front there. So it's just sweeping that eye. But what you'll notice is you start seeing when you push it out of the way, you get that curtain fringe effect, but there's that Coke bottle where it goes out and then back in. So you have narrow to wide, back to narrow, and it just frames the face so pretty.
So we're gonna take this, and you're gonna take this all in one motion in terms of when we cut it. So I'm gonna bring this forward. Now I'm gonna tell you something that's so important. If you're having problems doing this technique, and you feel when you cut it that the edge that you cut is so jagged or has a weight line on top of it, then what you've done is you've elevated this. What's so important is that you do not elevate this. You keep this as low to the bridge of the nose as you possibly can. The way that we start this fringe, it's all about the way that you're combing. So I'm gonna comb, and notice how I gather the hair, and I make sure that I'm gathering about the same place. When I look at this right now, my balance seems to be a little bit off on this side, so I'm just gonna come through and just bring a little bit more hair into the right side. What's so important with this fringe is the consistency in the way that you comb it, the way you elevate it, and the way you bring it and gather it together. So excuse me, I'm just looking to make sure that I've got proper width on both sides. I'm ready to go. Now, how does it start? It starts with your cutting hand. So you want to place your right hand. Now, what's important is the angle that we place our hand. So if I place my hand, let me give it to you a view this way so you can see. If I place this line in my hand, that's the line I'm going to get. If I go through and I do this, and it has a little bit more of a tilt to it, you're going to be longer on one side than the opposite side. Very important to remember. So your finger angle, the position of your hands are important. Once again, just checking to see how I'm over-directing that, where I'm over-directing it to. Now watch, my cutting hand is going to start this. So just coming through, just combing, notice how I grab, combing, I'm ready to cut. So now I'm gonna come through, place my hand, my cutting hand, at the bridge of the nose. Once I've got that placed at the bridge of the nose, all I'm simply gonna do is I'm gonna point to the bridge of the nose with my right hand. I'm gonna come through, you cannot move this hand down or up. It needs to stay exactly where you pinched it. Now I'm gonna bring my hand on top of that. And as I bring my hand on top of that, notice I bring it to the same position that my hand is, and I slide that out. And I continue that twist. That's critical, okay? Now we're ready to cut. When we go in to cut, I'm going to scan this season. So what I mean by scanning, I'm not gonna come in and cut a blunt line. I'm just gonna come through and I'm just gonna start to just scan across that section. And I just scan across that. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a little bit more of a bitten fringe, something that's a little bit more chewed on the edge, if you will, but something that has a little bit more of an edge that looks like the client might have cut it himself or it's been cut about a couple weeks ago. Now watch, when I release this, I'm going to have an arc. Let's talk about why. The outside corner is over-directed to the opposite side on both sides. The center stayed in the center. So because the center didn't move side to side, that's gonna be my shortest point. The outside sections moved. So when I release this, I automatically get a fringe that's going to do this. So it arcs itself out. And I want you to just notice the softness on the edge that I've achieved. Once I've got that, I'm gonna come through, take a section just on top of that. Just a small section. Because now what I wanna do is I wanna soften the top of this surface. So I'm gonna come through, don't panic please. I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna cut right on that hairline. This is going to be my guideline, and that scares people. But that's going to be my guideline. The fringe is not gonna be that short. What I wanna do now is soften the weight of this fringe. I'm gonna work with horizontal sections, working each horizontal section back. I'm working with our Streamline 675 shear, a shear that is much more lightweight and comfortable in your hand. So I recommend you check our shears out and find out which one is comfortable for you. We listened to you. You said you wanted something a little bit more lightweight, a little bit more comfortable, and we produced it for you, and that's the Streamline series. I continue to take horizontal sections. Notice each horizontal section that I'm taking, I am over-directing back. And as I over-direct back, I'm looking for that guideline that I created. There it is there. Now notice that I'm not point cutting into this at all. Okay, all I'm simply doing is just coming through and I'm just gonna soften out my fringe in terms of the degree of softness. You can start to see the transparency happening already. Then once I do this, I'm going to pick up a flat iron, okay? And I'm gonna pick up a small thermal round brush. And when I pick that up, all I wanna do is I wanna go through and I just wanna bevel this, because you're probably thinking there, as you're looking at this, you're thinking, well, that's so long, Sam. But what I want you to be aware of is the client is going to bevel this under. When they bevel something under, you're gonna find that the length is going to lift up. So we're bringing this back. Notice whatever reaches back to this, I'm coming through and following that line. Now, if you panicked about how short my guideline was, isn't that interesting that I still have the idea of length there. But now I want you to start to notice how much more transparent it's becoming.
So here, if we're going to create this fringe, what we need to see is that crisp definition, especially if we're going to picket fence or kind of zigzag our way across that perimeter right there. And so if we elevate the hair, we're going to create softness and we're going to lose the strength of that line. So we're going to leave everything in 100% natural fall right there, and we're going to get in there and begin to create this shape. So right there on top of the eye, tell your guest to close her eyes, and then you're going to make your first cut. And because it's low elevation, living right on the skin, we can really see the definition on that line. And then you just decide how you want to set it up. It's creative decision. It has a lot to do with the personality of the person you're doing it to. How short should I go? How long should I go? All of those things are about the personality of the wearer and what you can do for them. A couple quick shapes working that way. Maybe we want to open up the right eye a little bit more so we can attack opposite direction and create a little peak there. And we're starting to see a lot of aggressive movement in that shape. Crossing over to the other side, let's get over this eye and open it up a little bit. And then just create what feels good to you. You know, the shorter that we get, obviously we know that the more the influence of the root might come to have into play, and it might start to look a little bit more punk rock or edgy. So depending on your wearer and what they want to see, you'll design it just for them. Let's get a little angle going that way. Like my man Bob Ross says, we'll just make a happy little fringe. Final cut. You know, then we can just check to make sure that everything that we want to see is happening. Normally you want to give it a little bit of fuss too, and just make sure that no one's hanging out where they're not supposed to if she decides to move it from your original design. Here's one that popped up. We'll get him in the mix too. Everybody's welcome that wants to be there. I really wanted to see those peaks and valleys in this. That was my design. So if they start to disappear, I'll make sure that they get put back in. And because we cut this in 0 elevation, things are going to be a little bit heavy on the top end because there is no layer whatsoever. And so if we find that it's starting to kind of spring off the head, or if it feels a little bit blocky at the bottom, we may come in with one of our favorite tools, our blending shear, the InvisiBlend, and just begin to work some of that heaviness away. A little bit of gentle point cutting. The InvisiBlend would be my weapon of choice for this just because of such a small amount of hair that it removes with each cut. I really do feel safe when I can go in and diagnose with this particular shear. Just knocking some of the weight off those ends, letting it sit just a little bit more sweetly. If there was any place that was just dead heavy, you could actually elevate in that specific area just to treat that one area. Knock a little bit of the weight off and let it come back. What you want to be careful about is that through elevation and cutting that you don't disrupt the perimeter that you set so carefully. Sometimes the scariest techniques are the easiest ones to do. As we demonstrated, it was really just about putting the hair in natural fall and then eyeballing the face and designing that fringe as you saw fit and as she saw fit. So our first guide is going to come from the point of reference here at the corner of the eye. I'm going to pull off just a few hairs right there in the hairline to give me something for a guide. I'll move to the other side of the head and do exactly the same thing. Kind of fell out on its own already, nice. We're going to take one more at the center of the front of the head. I'll use the bridge of the nose just to let me know exactly where that is. And I'll pull out a few hairs right there too. So now I have a guide that will show me the length at the center and then on both sides. I'm going to focus on those for just a moment. I'm going to take those and put this away. At the corner of the eye, we're just going to decide where we want the fringe to stop on this right side. Once I know that, I can cut a guide. Do the same thing on the left side. And then once more in the center. I'm holding this with very little tension just to keep it still. Once we have these 3 points located, we can go ahead and take a little bit of hair, just a tiny thin little veneer or just a veil of it, so we can go ahead and set that perimeter in our fringe. So dropped a little bit between these two guides, and now we'll step over here and drop a little bit in front of the two other guides. And once again, take the rest and get it out of the way for now. So using these guides, we can go ahead and connect these two safely, knowing that they're exactly where they want to be. I'm going to use the wide teeth of my short cutting comb just to keep all this hair in place. I don't want tension on this, I just want it to not push away as I cut it. So I'm going to lift the hair, place the comb underneath, and then just kind of tap that hair in there. What this gives me is a very minimal amount of elevation off the head, just the width of the spine of my comb, about 1/4 of an inch. And then I can adjust this to meet my two guides, and when I have that, I'm ready to make my cut. And then I'm just going to go to the other side and do the exact same thing. Close your eye, ma'am. I'll reach across there, place the wide teeth of my comb underneath, make sure that all my guides are in there. That way I'm getting just that minimal bit of elevation. and then I can adjust that angle until I can see both of the guides clearly, and then make my cut. So now I have my perimeter, as it were, or my 0-degree cut, and now I can begin to drop this down layer by layer and just blend it to that. Give it a little comb so you can see where it lives, and then our movements should be obvious. We're going to do exactly the same thing we've been doing. Don't give up now. Wide teeth of my comb, just tap that back in. Feeling really good now. I can see everything, including the hair that we need to cut, and we'll take it. Let's jump to the other side and finish it up. Using the wide teeth of the comb. Spine against her skin. Minimal elevation. Checking both guides and looking for my previously cut section. Once I see all three, I'm good to go. So looking at the fringe now, we make the decision with our guest. Get her input on it. Does it look too heavy? Is it too long? What are the details that we need to adjust? And in this case, we've looked at it, and all we feel that's happening is that we love the heavy line that we're getting, but it hangs a little bit like a brick right there. So we're gonna alleviate a little bit of that weight using our InvisiBlend shear. Our InvisiBlend shear is one of our favorite blenders, 1 out of 2, and a very soft touch. Really good for dry hair and working in critical areas like crowns, fringes, face framing layers, or anytime you need to slide cut using a blending shear. This blade is actually not sharpened, it's just polished. So when these two close, we get a little bit of stretch on the ends, almost like a razor. So very nice for doing very small reductions and leaving very little evidence that you were even there with it. So right here in the front, we'll just give it a light layer, just enough to take some of the heaviness off the bottom. So let's stick to the same section plan that we were using, corner of the eye, and then bridge of the nose or the center of the forehead. We'll divide that right there. The reason that we've done this is that the forehead is a round shape. You know, it doesn't live like a square. So a lot of times when we pull all of it forward to cut it, we're creating elevation and over directions towards the sides of that section. So splitting it down the center line lets us work on this side and then this side of the center line, which works more to the round shape of the head. So taking that line down the center, and I'm going to grab this section, I'll get behind her, and then I'm going to elevate it directly above this little area that it lives in on that side of the center line. As I elevate up, you'll see my length drop away. That lets me know that my perimeter is secure. Nothing's going to go wrong down there. And then using my InvisiBlend for a small reduction, I'll give this a love tap, maybe 2. And what that's going to do is it's not going to remove all of the length, it's just going to take away some of that heaviness. So we'll drop that down on this side, and let's have a look. Still keeps a nice heavy line, it just takes a little bit of that weight off the bottom, just perfect. Let's do the other side. Right down the center line, and then elevate without over direction right above the area that it lives. Once you see enough of your length drop out and you know that your perimeter is good, give it a love tap, maybe 2. And that's going to leave all of your length, but just take some of that heaviness off the bottom.